The Mafia. A seemingly simple word, but it actually translates to a whole different world. Cosa Nostra, mobsters and gangsters are just some, but deadly nicknames of the Mafia. Money and power were the driving force behind these world's dangerous men's illegal deeds. While it's true the Mafia in the US isn't what it once was at the peak of its power, it's still a viable and profitable criminal enterprise that has proven to be very resilient. The Mafia continues to make millions and millions of dollars from not only traditional mob rackets, but new and innovative schemes. Although there have been numerous reports of the mob's demise over the last decade, families in and outside of New York remain. Over the past few years, several Mafia families across the country have been able to reorganize themselves under new leadership, and in some cases even rebounded from previous downturns in both size and power. The New York Times strengthened this by mentioning that the Mafia is still alive despite the government's efforts to eradicate the mob. The 5 families have been wounded, but not mortally, the author said. No one has driven a spike through their heart. They're not dead. The 5 families. Currently, the Mafia's power is concentrated in the circle that is famously known as the 5 families. The 5 families refers to 5 major New York City organized crime families of the Italian-American Mafia formed in 1931 by Salvatore Maranzano, following his victory in the Castellamarese War. These families consist of the Gambino, Genovese, Lucchese, Colombo, and Bonanno families. The heads of the most powerful families made up a commission whose main function was judicial. To understand this better, here's how the Mafia hierarchy inside these 5 families works. At the top of the organization is a boss or a don, who is the undisputed leader of the organization. The authority of the boss or don could only be challenged by the commission. A consigliere is a counselor and advisor to this boss or don. The consigliere is a trusted friend and confidant, usually the number 3 man in the family. The underboss is a powerful second-in-command, who could be a family member, such as a son who is being groomed to one day take over the family business. Directly under the underboss is the capo, who is a ranking made member of a family who leads a crew of soldiers. A capo is similar to a military captain who commands soldiers. A soldier is also known as a made man. Soldiers are the lowest members of the crime family, but still command respect in the organization. To become made, soldiers are required to take an oath of silence called omerta. In some families, another requirement is that candidates commit murder. Then there are the associates. An associate is an individual who is part of a crew but has not been made and commits crimes under the protection or direction of made members, as well as remits a share of his illegal proceeds to his direct made superior. In 2022, not all Mafia families have an official boss. Some have acting bosses or street bosses who run the family. Others, like the Luccheses and Bruno families, have had the same bosses for decades. In certain cases, the bosses and hierarchy of the families are not known because the real boss recently passed away, was killed, or retired. A closer look at the separate families will make this more clear. Bonanno crime family. Michael "The Nose" Mancuso has been the official boss of the Bonanno family for 8 years. He's the first official boss of the Bonannos since Joey Massino became a government witness in 2004. Joseph "Joe C." Camarano Jr. is Mancuso's street boss and is also serving as acting underboss. Mancuso initially made his name as a member of the Purple Gang. Purple Gang was an Italian-based gang of enforcers who ran the heroin trade in East Harlem. Although the gang did jobs for the 5 families, they were mostly an independent unit. Mancuso eventually became a made member of the Bonanno family. He was named acting underboss in 2004. The Nose has a very sordid past. He served 10 years after being convicted of manslaughter in the death of his wife Evelina, and has been implicated in several murders, including that of Bonanno capo Gerlando Sciascia in 1999. It was Big Joe Massino who tied Mancuso to that killing. In 2008, Mancuso was convicted of yet another murder and sentenced to 15 years this time. He didn't get released until 2019 and was made official boss in 2013 while he was in prison. The family he has now has been very depleted. An FBI narcotics bust in 2017 and a major racketeering case in 2018 put many more Bonanno members and associates in prison. It's likely that Mancuso is being tightly monitored daily. Colombo crime family. With the death of Carmine the Snake Persico in 2019, who was the family's boss since the 1970s, the most violent New York Mafia family was forced to look for a new leader. After Persico died in jail in 2019, another one of his cousins, Andrew "Andy Mush" Russo, reportedly took over as boss of the Colombo family. Russo was a cousin of Carmine Persico, and he held the title of acting underboss since 1973, when Persico took over the family. He and other leaders, however, were arrested in 2021 on extortion charges, and Russo died in April 2022 while awaiting trial. Rebuilding the Colombo family would be no easy task. They are still a legitimate Mafia family, but most of their relevant members are serving long prison sentences. The Colombos never really recovered from the Third Family War back in the early 1990s, which led to 13 people dead and a slew of informants and government witnesses. Gambino crime family. When official family boss Domenico Italian Dom Cefalu went into semi-retirement in 2015, he named Cali the acting boss. Lore Manino became the family's new underboss and then became acting boss after Cali's death, who was murdered in front of his home on March 13, 2019. He's taking over a family which still seems to be in transition. It's not yet clear if Lore will be named the official boss or if they will go in another direction. Lorenzo Lore Manino is 63 years old, and his involvement with the Gambino family dates back to the Gotti-Gravano era. In fact, Manino was a hitman for Gotti. In 1988, Lore was part of a 5-man hit team who killed Francesco Oliveri. The planning and execution of the hit was done by Sammy Gravano, who testified against Lore and the others in 1993. Manino served 10 years and was released in 2004. He served his time quietly and was promoted to capo soon after his return to the streets. By this time, some of the heat surrounding the Gotti era had finally died down. This allowed Manino and the family to begin the slow process of rebuilding after nearly 2 decades of rapid Gambino family decline. Genovese crime family. Liborio Barney Bellomo was inducted into the Genovese family in 1977. He was a very competent and trusted underling of legendary Genovese boss Vincent the Chin Gigante. Barney rose fast in the family and was named acting boss by the age of 33 years old when Gigante got indicted in the Windows case. In 1996, Bellomo was hit with RICO charges, which included multiple murders, racketeering, and extortion. The murder charges would eventually get dropped. Barney worked out a plea agreement on the other charges and took a 10-year sentence, which was a huge success compared to the life sentence he could have gotten. He was released in 2004 and soon got wrapped up in another murder charge. He was accused of ordering the 1998 murder of Ralph Coppola while in the middle of serving his sentence. Yet again, he was able to beat the charge while only being convicted of mail fraud. Bellomo's daughter Sabrina may have helped him get a lighter sentence, 1 year, with her heartfelt plea for leniency. Bellomo has since been in firm control of the family and may be the most powerful mafia boss in America. The Genovese family as a unit might be doing better than any other mafia family in the country. They have a very healthy number of active captains paying tribute, roughly 15. They have a diversified income stream that leans on both criminal and legit businesses. Did you know that despite the bad blood between the government and the mafia, the Genovese family helped the US in World War II? In 1942, a US troop carrier ship caught fire and capsized in Manhattan Harbor in a suspected act of sabotage. It was well known that the mafia controlled the docks at the time, so the Navy reached out to imprisoned mafioso Salvatore Lucky Luciano. Lucky ordered that any suspicious activity along the docks and waterfronts be reported to the authorities and guaranteed that there would be no strikes from the dock workers. In exchange, his sentence was commuted and he was deported to Italy. Lucchese crime family. Vittorio Vic the Terminator Amuso has been the official boss of the Lucchese family since 1987. He is considered one of the deadliest mafia bosses in American history, and multiple informants have reported that he still rules the family from prison. Vic and his former underboss, Anthony "Gaspipe" Casso, were involved in dozens of mafia killings. It's not a surprise that Amuso was so violent when you consider that his original mentor was Crazy Joe Gallo. It was Vic and Gaspipe Casso who were responsible for the car bomb killing of John Gotti's underboss, Frank DeCicco, in 1986. It was partial revenge for the Paul Castellano killing. Eventually, they both got caught up in the famous Windows case. Amuso is the longest reigning current mafia boss, even though he's been in prison since 1992, after being convicted on murder and racketeering charges. He is currently housed in a federal prison in Maryland, serving a life sentence. He had a couple of mafia heavyweights running the show, acting boss Big Mike DeSantis and underboss Stephen Wonderboy Crea, but Crea is also serving a life sentence. The Lucchese family as a unit is doing well, ranking third in the country behind the Gambino and Genovese families. They have captains with crews of soldiers and associates based in various areas throughout New York City and New Jersey. There have been several strings since 2017 that show the Luccheses are still under massive law enforcement scrutiny. Other families. In New York City, the 5 major Italian-American mafia families dominate organized crime activities. While the mafia may no longer possess the robust national presence and influence it once had, it remains a significant threat in the extended New York metropolitan area, New England, Philadelphia, Chicago, and Detroit. Aside from the 5 families, there are other mafia families in the US, namely the Philadelphia Mafia family, Detroit Mafia family, Decavalcante family, PATRIARCA family, Chicago Mafia family, Buffalo Mafia family, Kansas City Mafia family, and the Cleveland Mafia family. Each of these mafia families has its respective boss, acting or street boss, and or underboss, as well as consigliere. Magaddino crime family. Joseph Big Joe Todaro Jr. is the boss of the Magaddino crime family in Buffalo, New York. The family also has a vast influence north of the border in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Big Joe's father, Joseph Todaro Sr., was the boss of the family in the 1980s, when the family was at its strongest point. The Magaddino family has been in existence for over a century. Todaro Jr. became the acting boss back in 1995 when his father went into semi-retirement. 11 years later, in 2006, he would be named official boss. The family had tremendous influence over local labor unions at the time. They have since lost most of that racket, but still have many others, including drug trafficking, loan sharking, and extortion of local businesses. Big Joe and his pizzeria, La Nova, were featured in Barstool Pizza Review with David Portnoy. The episode was a bit strange, with constant mafia references throughout by Portnoy, even though it did not mention anything about Todaro being a mafia boss. While Todaro made some obvious mafia jokes, he has never acknowledged being a part of the mafia at any point in his life. His underboss, Domenico Violi, oversees the Canadian interests of the family. A recent wiretap revealed that Todaro had consulted the commission before promoting Violi, indicating that the commission was indeed still around in some capacity. There is no doubt that the Magaddino family still exists. The argument in recent years is how much influence they still carry. It's certainly not at the level it was in years past, but they have morphed into a more semi-legitimate kind of organization, like Todaro with La Nova. In December 2019, Pharaoh's Adult Entertainment Club was raided. The club is run by Todaro's nephew. Chicago Mafia family, Chicago outfit. The Chicago Mafia family, also referred to as the Chicago outfit, has been around as long or longer than any of New York's 5 families. Their past bosses read like a who's who in mafia lore. Johnny the Fox Torrio, Al Scarface Capone, Tony Joe Batters Accardo, Paul the Waiter Rica, and Sam Giancana. Their current boss is Salvatore Soli De Laurentiis. Solly took over as the official boss in 2014 when the previous boss, John No-Nos Di Fronzo, retired. Di Fronzo continued to advise on family matters until his death from Alzheimer's disease in 2018. De Laurentiis is a very capable mobster and has in the past played peacemaker between warring outfit factions, earning a respect that slowly carried him to the top of the Chicago outfit. Solly is now in his early 80s, and although he's not retired, he has taken a step back. In his place to run the outfit is street boss Albert "Albie the Falcon" Vena, the man who most experts feel will soon be named official boss. Underboss Salvatore "Sammy Cards" Cataudella and acting consigliere John "Pudgy" Matassa Jr. round out the current outfit hierarchy. The current state of the outfit has been a subject of hot debate in recent years as to how influential they still are. Operation Family Secrets back in 2007 was a devastating gutting to their ranks. They have since rebuilt the once dominant family back into a more underground type of operation, but their high-profile past will continue to haunt them moving forward. Bruno Mafia family. Joseph "Skinny Joey" Merlino has been the boss of the Bruno family in Philadelphia for over 20 years now. His father was former Scarfo underboss Chucky Merlino. Joey took over in 1999 when then-boss Ralph Natale, in a shocking move, became a government witness. Merlino and his gang of young Turks had boldly gone to war with previous boss John Stanfa's crew, and won in the early 1990s, putting them on the map. Skinny Joey was known as a flashy-dressing gangster who hung out with celebrities. He became something of a poor man's John Gotti and would survive many attempts on his life by his enemies. In 2001, Merlino beat 3 murder charges, but was convicted of racketeering and served the next decade in prison. He did his time quietly, but the FBI knew that Merlino was still calling the shots in Philly. When he was released in 2011, he relocated full-time to Boca Raton, Florida. According to him, he was fully retired from all Mafia activities. The Mafia made the news again in 2016, when a massive RICO case saw 46 mobsters arrested. Merlino was one of the men, along with several known Genovese family members in New York. This shows the families throughout the country are still working with each other actively. Skinny Joey went back to prison until he was released again in October 2019. Joey has a street boss, Mikey Lance Lancelotti, who actively runs the family but defers to him. In November 2020, underboss Stephen "Handsome Steve" Mazzone was indicted after the FBI recorded a making ceremony. Mazzone and a few others also discussed their desire to take back Atlantic City. The next few months should be very interesting in Philly. The PATRIARCA family. The PATRIARCA family is often referred to as the New England Mafia because they operate in at least 4 of those 5 states. Their base has always been in Rhode Island, but their current boss is from Boston's North End. Carmen the Cheeseman D'Annunzio is a former cheese shop owner who had served as the family's underboss since 2004. The very large Cheeseman weighs in the neighborhood of 400 pounds. He was a protege of longtime boss Luigi "Baby Shack's" Manocchino. Manocchio, who went to prison in 2011 and is now believed to be retired. D'Annunzio went to prison in 2009 for bribery and was released in early 2015. When family boss Peter Limone passed away, he became the new boss in 2016. D'Annunzio's brother Anthony was the former acting boss and a man that made millions of dollars shaking down strip club owners. The current underboss of the family is Matthew "Good-Looking Matty" Guglielmetti, who operates out of Rhode Island. The family looks to be strengthening after decades of decline, but took a blow with the recent death of consigliere Joseph the Bishop Achille. The family is surviving because they have such a wide base, and many of their members have invested heavily in more legitimate businesses. They also have done well at avoiding the public eye in recent years and staying out of the media. It looks like their hierarchy will remain solid after nearly a full century, but they don't have a lot of captains currently and need to build the ranks. Did you know that New York's underground gay bars of the 1960s, including the Stonewall Inn, were actually created and supported by the Mafia? At the time, it was illegal to be gay, so the mob paid off local precincts to keep them from doing raids. Detroit Mafia family. The Detroit Partnership is an organized crime family that's been in operation since the 1930s and still exists today. When the longtime boss Giacomo Tocco died in 2014, Jackie the Kid Giacalone stepped into his place. The Kid's family were no strangers to the partnership, and he grew up in the life. He was groomed to be the boss from a young age. His late father Vito Billy Jack Giacalone and late uncle Anthony Tony Jack Giacalone were both captains in the partnership. Tony Jack was one of the men that former Teamsters president Jimmy Hoffa was on the way to meet when he disappeared forever on July 30th, 1975. The universal story in the Mafia is that Tony Jack had Hoffa killed, not Frank Sheeran as told in The Irishman. Jackie the Kid inherited a fairly healthy crime family. The partnership is smaller, about 40 to 50 members, but pretty functional as an outfit. They have done a great job of staying low-key and have only had a minimal amount of informers. Along with extortion, loan sharking, and drug dealing, they have lots of investments in legitimate businesses. De Cavalcante family. The De Cavalcante crime family, also known as the North Jersey Mafia, is an Italian-American mafia organized crime family that operates mainly in northern New Jersey, particularly in Elizabeth, Newark, West New York, and various other North Jersey cities, and the surrounding areas in North Jersey. Longtime member Charles Big Ears Maggiore is the current boss of the family. Maggiore became involved in the De Cavalcante crime family as a teenager. His father, Frank Maggiore, was once the underboss of the De Cavalcantes, and later longtime consigliere. The younger Maggiore's criminal record included illegal gambling, larceny, stolen property, and bookmaking in the late 1960s and early 1970s. At some point between the early and late 1970s, Maggiore is to have become inducted into the De Cavalcante crime family, but toward the early 1980s, and longtime and infamous mob boss Simone Sam the Plumber De Cavalcante retired. Giovanni John the Eagle Riggi, the longtime underboss, subsequently promoted Maggiore to the rank of Capo Regime, or Captain of the Family in the Newark faction. Despite this promotion, Maggiore somehow disliked his position, as it would only serve the family more than serve him alone. According to Jerry Capecci and US law enforcement, Maggiore conspired with his Newark faction of North Jersey to murder his rivals of the Elizabeth faction, Girolamo Palermo and Vincent Palermo. Reportedly, both the Palermos heard of the murder plot and sent two soldiers, Anthony Capo and James Jimmy Gallo, to murder Maggiore outside his house. Vincent Palermo was reportedly the main conspirator behind the plot, as he was eager to control Maggiore's racketeering and union operations in Newark, New Jersey. In 2000, Maggiore was indicted on multiple charges, including racketeering, loan sharking, extortion, and conspiracy to commit murder. He was released from prison on April 28, 2009. Maggiore's position in the family was confirmed in 2021, although he was believed to be the boss since 2015. Kansas City Mafia family. The Kansas City crime family, also known as the Civella crime family or Kansas City Mafia, is an Italian-American mafia family based in Kansas City, Missouri. Johnny Joe Shortino is the current boss of the Kansas City Mafia family. Shortino was formerly a capo and the godson and protege of boss Anthony Civella. He was named acting boss by Civella after he was imprisoned in 1995 and became the official boss after his death in 2006. Shortino is suspected of being involved in the murder of family associate Larry Strada, who was shot to death in the driveway of his home on May 16, 1990. FBI agents testified that the two mobsters charged in the case, John Mandacina and Patrick McGuire, were seen meeting with Shortino and Peter Simone at Simone's Social Avenue Club in the hours before Strada's murder. Cleveland Mafia family. The Cleveland crime family, or Cleveland Mafia, is the collective name given to a succession of Italian-American organized crime gangs based in Cleveland, Ohio, in the United States. As a part of the Cosa Nostra phenomenon, it operates in the greater Cleveland area. Were you aware that the 1972 hit movie The Godfather does not contain the words Mafia or La Cosa Nostra? It is because of a deal struck between the producer and the real Mafia. The crime family nearly ceased to exist in the 1990s after many high-ranking members were imprisoned. The organization is believed by law enforcement to be extremely small in the 21st century, although attempting to rebuild. Although in recent years, Joseph J. Joe Luce Iobachi Jr. has been reported by some law enforcement and media sources as the boss of Cleveland's Cosa Nostra, he died of natural causes in 2021. Some of those same sources now report the key figure in Cleveland is Russell J. Pappalardo. Pappalardo was said to be the boss since 2006. Reported to be the key figure in Cleveland, Russell Pappalardo was convicted in 1986 of helping to run a multi-million-dollar cocaine ring with leaders of the Cleveland mob, according to published reports. He served about 4 years in prison, according to the US Bureau of Prisons. Angelo Lanardo, who later became a government witness, is said to have inducted Pappalardo and Joseph Iobachi into the Cleveland mob in 1983. Because the Cleveland mob is a close-knit, low-key group, little is known about it today. However, we still know that all these Mafia families have more influence than we all think. For more Mafia content, make sure to subscribe.